Hello and welcome to Talking Bengals, episode 6. I'm Casey Sprague, joined always by Nick Houlihan. We have a special guest with us tonight. You may have read some of his great stuff on StripeHype, and he is the host of the Corner 3 podcast, Tim Daniel. Tim, how you doing?
I am great, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a few months since I did some Talking Bengals.
I know you got to be excited to get back in here and talk about the Bengals, and let's talk about the big signing this week of cornerback Ben Wickery. Tim, what do you think about it?
It's a move that makes sense. There's a lot of uncertainty at the cornerback position with, whatever's going to happen legally with Jones, and then if Drake or Patrick signs back or not. As a guy who's experienced in the league, he's played in a high position before. Was supposed to be the guy that filled in for Josh Norman during their injury last year, but obviously that was not what happened. He struggled quite a bit and was the victim of Julio Jones' 300-yard receiving game. But I like the move. I really like this young cornerback core. If it's going to save them from drafting one, I'm okay with that.
So, Nick, what are your thoughts?
I was just reading some of the combine stuff from when he was getting drafted. A lot of the overviews are saying, he was, all conference and stuff, saying he has good size and excellent ball skills. A couple of the weaknesses were the weight room and top end speed. One of the examples was, I guess, his graduating class was the Stanford wide receiver, Ty Montgomery, and he wasn't really able to shore up a lot of tackles. With not having the tackling skills, obviously his with the draft projection and everything, Sandy really likes the physicality. The Bengals at the cornerback position need that. Obviously we have Adam Jones, who's not very subtle about hitting people. That's fine. But we need other people who can hit, and I think it's something that can be worked on. I think he can get his physicality up and get his weight room up and working and get his strength a little bit better. But like Tim said, there's a lot of uncertainty in the defensive backfield. Casey, you have anything?
Well, there's a lot to like about him. He's got good ball skills, and now that he's in Cincinnati, he's not going to have to face Julio Jones very often, and A.J. Green's on his team, so I don't have to worry about that matchup. Really, Antonio Brown's about the only big concern, but if you can retain Drake or Patrick, then I think he can match up well enough to keep him from having a huge game. And the other positive about Ben Wickery is we got him on the league minimum. He is signed to a nothing deal right now, so he's costing us just the minimum amount that he can. So I don't think there's any real risk in signing him. And it gives you a little bit of a veteran move, which is something the Bengals don't usually look at. Instead of if we let Adam Jones go and then Drake or Patrick walks away, we're not going to be left with a whole bunch of rookies and unproven guys. We're going to have at least somebody who, he got burned pretty bad last year in a couple games, but he does have experience. He's been a productive member in the past for the NFL. And, we could just see where he goes from there. So coming off of a 6-9-1 season, unbelievably, Cincinnati Bengals are raising their season ticket prices. Nick, I know you're fired up. What do you think?
I think it's absolutely kind of hysterical on my end. It's kind of sarcastic for the Bengals box office. And what are you doing raising the prices? Seriously, raising the prices after a losing season. You're just kicking your fans in the teeth and just saying, I don't care what you think. I'm going to make more money off you. I know, my wife says it a lot. Why invest your money in a losing team or a losing franchise? I love the Bengals. I've loved them to death my entire life. Casey, you know as well as I do. We've been here ever since the 90s and how bad that was. Just simply, I think it's a kick in the teeth to the fans. And I think it's definitely a kick in the teeth to the people who've been faithful to the Bengals, every season pretty much since they moved at least into the Paul Brown Stadium. And probably a lot of those season ticket holders came over from Riverfront. So, you're kicking the fans in the teeth. I think it's ridiculous. Tim?
It's not ideal by any means of the matter, but I'm not surprised. I mean, this is a major corporation, major organization, and it's the best deal in the sports as far as the county. So yeah, I get why they're doing what they're doing. It sucks, but they also took a home game away from us to go to London last year, and I was pretty pissed about that with my season tickets. So I'm not stoked about it by any means. I don't like the move, but I get it. This is it, it's a way to make some money. It's the way the Bengals do is to make some money. So I'm not shocked by it by any means.
Well, to chime in with my 2 cents there, I think an increase, it is a business, but if you're a business, you got to have a product that's worth watching and worth the selling. And right now, going 6-9-1 is not the way you want to sell it to your fans. Hey, we didn't have a great year, but we're going to increase the prices anyway. And the problem that I found, my family had owned tickets since 1975 and got rid of them just a few years ago. You couldn't sell the tickets. I moved away, and so I couldn't go to the games, and we tried to find people to buy the tickets. You couldn't sell them. You could barely give them away. I mean, we were 5 rows from the field on the 10-yard line, and you could barely give the tickets away to people. Nobody wants to go to the games because it's going to cost you $30 at least in food. If you buy a beer, you add another $30 to $40 on top of that. So the whole experience, I mean, you're paying $110 a seat for one game, $35 to $40 for a parking pass, and then like I said, close to $80 to $100 on food if you're a drinker. It just adds up astronomically. So even though it's a small increase, it's below the league average for season ticket price increase. It's still just a little bit of a, why are we increasing the prices? How much more money do you need? If you put together a playoff winning season, you're going to make a lot more money anyway. So I don't enjoy them or appreciate the move either way, but just got to make a little bit of money. So I was reading a few articles this week that piqued my interest. This is the off season. We got a whole lot of slow time, a lot of dead time, not a whole lot to talk about other than Ben Wickery, which that was a really quick topic for us. But let's move on to some of the older Bengals and think about which one of them should maybe be in the Hall of Fame. 2 come to mind right off the bat for me, Ken Anderson and Ken Riley. So, Tim, who do you think, and what do you think about that topic?
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 very logical ones. Riley being the most one to make. I think Riley makes a little more sense than Ken Anderson, only because of what the stature is. I get Ken Anderson has an NFL MVP, but what Riley did is pretty amazing. The career 65 interceptions, consistently was one of the top 2 in the team. But if you listened last year, Paul Deriner and Mo Egger were doing a podcast for the Bengals where they discussed the 50th anniversary coming up and the potential Ring of Honor who would be in there. And the reason they didn't include Ken Riley is Ken Riley was never the number 1 cornerback he played on that he was on the team with. He always was the number 2. There was always another guy there. So that's one of the things that kind of stats his resume there, and also they always took away from. He wasn't a tackler. He wasn't making pick sixes, but still 65 interceptions is 65 interceptions. I get the Ken Anderson by any means, a lot of great years there. But quarterback's so hard to judge who isn't a Hall of Famer unless it's a guy like in current football, Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, or in those days of Montana, Young, Aikman, and those guys. If I had to add to the list, to be honest with you, I think Willie Anderson definitely deserves a look into this Hall of Fame ballot. If you look at his tenure and his career and the things he did, he had an excellent career. Quite a few All-Pros, a couple Pro Bowls. Really was one of the big picks that brought the Bengals back into their winning culture. So Willie's a guy on my list.
Nick, what do you think?
Well, obviously, Ken Anderson's a good pick for anybody to say that he should be in the Hall of Fame, just simply by his performances. Ken Riley was another one that, like what Tim was saying, you have an individual who performs, every season for your team, constantly putting up great numbers. I was reading a little bit about him earlier, and just some of the numbers that he was putting up was, it was league records, or not league records, but team records. And those records are still, some of them are still either tied or, they're difficult to come by. 3 interceptions in a game. I remember at least two games where he had 3 interceptions in a game. You have somebody who performs like Ken Riley. I think he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, especially with the numbers he put up. 65 interceptions in a career is pretty darn good, especially for a cornerback. at the number 2 cornerback. Maybe a Hall of Fame candidate. I don't know. I kind of a little salty about Corey Dillon going over to the Patriots, but I mean, him being able to play and do as well as he did on a team that was as bad as what he played on. I mean, I think that really speaks volumes for how good of a player you are. So, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably say Corey Dillon should at least get a name in the ballot box. Casey?
I'll start off with the senior class of the Hall of Fame nominees. Ken Anderson, actually, ad nauseum talked about Ken Anderson should be in the Hall of Fame. If you're really bored one day and you want to dig on StripeHype, when I used to write for them last offseason, I did actually use a different stat that I created called total quarterback value, and it showed how if you look at the actual stats that matter, and even including Super Bowl wins and other stuff like that, he's still ranked in the top 5 or 6 of the what I call the pre-big pass era. So, before your Montana's got really popular, before your Dan Marino's, Peyton Manning's, all those guys who, throw for ungodly amounts of yards, back when the game was a little bit different, before, when the game wasn't quite the same as it is today, and he stacks up really well against a whole bunch of guys who are in the Hall of Fame. But I think you guys have touched a lot on Ken Riley, great cornerback, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to look a little bit more into the modern Hall of Fame class candidates. Willie Anderson, obviously Willie Anderson. You're talking about Corey Dillon, Nick. Without Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon may not even been much of a blip on the radar. Big Willie was just one of the most consistent guys. I mean, you could set him up against anybody, and he could just block them. He wouldn't let people pass. I'm probably a little bit off. I think he only gave up like 6 or 7 sacks in a 10-year period, and he was going against some of the best guys in the league. So Willie Anderson's a tough guy, and I know that maybe it's my bias, but the other guy I think in the modern era that I have to say get looked at for the Hall of Fame is Chad Johnson. He put up great numbers. I mean, he led the league in receiving 4 years. I think it was 4 years in a row or 4 years within his career, and that's not done by many people. Yes, his antics are bad. He was a little bit too flashy, but at the same time, you got to give him his credit and you got to give him his due. Does anybody want to rebut any of the Chad Johnson comments?
I'll jump in. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I would definitely have him on my ballot, but I don't know if I am there yet. I mean, if you look at the guys that are out, first off, the fact that Lynn Swann is in the Hall of Fame is absurd to me. If you look at his true stats, like I think he's in there because he caught the ultimate deflection, and that's the main reason he's in the Hall of Fame. Didn't hurt that he played for the Steel Curtain Steelers, obviously, but I mean. He had 110 touchdown season. Yeah, he did lead the league in receiving a couple times, led the AFC in receiving for a consecutive run there, but he never had a year where he eclipsed 100 receptions. He never had the best year he had was a 97-yard rookie reception year. I remembered. I think that same year TJ had 114. I always loved Chad. I will put Chad in my Bengals Hall of Fame any day of the week, but as far as Canton goes, I'm not there. And I get where you're coming from, but I don't know if I'm ready to say he should have a gold jacket by any means.
I'm going to have to agree with Tim. I don't think that he should have a gold jacket by any means either. I mean, when I think of Canton and I think of the Hall of Fame, I think of guys like Brett Favre, people who are good football players that exuberate, class. And when you look at Chad Johnson, he just didn't exuberate any kind of class. He ran his mouth a lot and made a lot of people mad. But I mean, when you have TJ Hushmanzada, looking at a lot of good receptions, a lot of really solid games where he was really a staple in the Bengals team. I think it's a good idea to look at other people that played for the Bengals other than just Chad. Yeah, he was a good receiver. He could get open in a telephone booth, but at the same time, he wasn't very classy.
On that note, are we counting out Deion Sanders being in the Hall of Fame then? Because he ran his mouth. He made a lot of people upset. But, I mean, he was, one of the top 2 corners to ever play the game.
Yeah, I agree with your Deion Sanders thing, but I mean, the problem with Deion is he won Super Bowls, and look where he played. He played San Francisco a lot, played in Atlanta, and played in Dallas. Those are, especially Dallas and San Francisco, are places that the NFL likes. Places that, that you win championships. Dallas is quote unquote America's team. Don't ask me how that's still possible. But he played in areas that are not Cincinnati. If you look at it, Cincinnati players are hurt historically. I mean, even Pete Rose, he's got problems, in baseball. And yes, he did some things wrong, but they're talking about, the steroid era. And I know I'm getting way off topic here. But if Pete Rose played in a different city, if he was a New York Yankee and not a Cincinnati Red, maybe he wouldn't have that problem, just like Chad's always going to be condemned for being a Cincinnati Bengal and not a Dallas Cowboy.
If we would have talked to Pete Rose saying this is the wrong show, because I will take over your show on that one, and not in a good way, trust me. But I get where you're coming from there too, as far as the resume, and that goes back to my Lynn Swan comment. But I'm going back to what Nick said as far as the making people mad and upset thing. I get where you're coming from with the being in a certain place, but Earl Campbell's in the Hall of Fame, and he was outstanding. He didn't play in a huge art market, so I get where you're going from with that, but I don't think it's 100% accurate, if that makes sense.
Well, all stats are biased, so I would agree. I'll give you your due on that one, Tim. But let's move into our favorite segment of the show, Roast It or Boast It. First topic up this week is a heated one in the Cincinnati area. It is, will Devin Mesoraco have let me just rephrase that here. Does Devin Mesoraco have a better chance of playing a full season than Tyler Eifert? Roast it or boast it? Nick, you're up first.
I'm going to say boast on Devin Mesoraco. I love Devin Mesoraco. He is a hard baseball player. He goes out, plays the game the right way. He's got his head on his shoulders, and I think he has worked his butt off in the offseason just by judging by the way he plays during the actual season. So I'm going to boast Devin Mesoraco, and I'm going to roast Tyler Eifert. Hit that, what is his shoulder? He's always got his, the brace on, and he's just continually hurt. He's continuously getting hurt, and it's always something with Tyler Eifert. So I'm definitely boasting Devin Mesoraco. Tim?
I am 100% the polar opposite on that. We're talking about Tyler Eifert, who has had 80 catch opportunities the last 2 years. He's gotten the end zone 18 times. I like Mesoraco too, but you're talking about a guy that literally in 334 eligible baseball games he played, he had 95 at-bats. He played in very few games. I have the stats up here. It would be exact. He played in 30 years. I get the football's a lot shorter season, but Eifert played in 13 and in the 15 season, and he played 8 or 9 last year, and still put up really decent numbers in that year, even in the little time he was on the field. But if I'm picking one or the other, I'm standing with I trust that I will see Tyler Eifert for longer in the season than I will Devin Mesoraco.
Well, I'm going to have to go with, actually, I'm going to pull a Nick here this week and say I am roasting both of them. There is no way either Tyler Eifert or Devin Mesoraco is going to make it through a full season this year. It's unfortunate for both Cincinnati franchises, but Mesoraco, you got both hips have had problems now. And you really think you're going to be able to squat down and still play catcher after that? I don't see it happening. And unfortunately, if the Reds could have traded Joey Votto and freed up some more of that cap space, then you could have moved Mesoraco to first base. But who are we kidding? You're not going to put Mesoraco over Votto any day of the week for anything, whether it's hitting or playing first base. So Mesoraco is not going to be able to maintain his catching abilities, and he'll get hurt probably fairly early in the season, just like last year. Where Eifert, I think, will have a little bit more longevity, but I'm more worried about a concussion this year. I'm not sure why. I just have a bad feeling it's going to be a repeat of a few years ago when the Steelers cheap shot at him and somebody's going to hit him across the middle. He's going to end up with a concussion problem, and then he'll be out for a few games. So I think we'll see Eifert more this season. I agree with Tim, but I don't think either one will play a full season, unfortunately. So moving into our next topic, a uniform that I hate thoroughly. Oh, somebody have a rebuttal? Go ahead. If you got a rebuttal, knock it out.
Casey, I wanted to roast both of them, but if I had to pick one, I like Devin Mesoraco just simply because it's baseball. I mean, you're not getting hit all the time. It's a lot easier to stay healthier than, I mean, you look at Tyler Eifert, he's got, different areas that hurt, and also you're talking about a concussion and you're playing in the AFC. So, I mean, you're looking at big hitters.
All righty. So that's why I called it pulling in a Nick. Roasting both of them is typically the thing you like to do. So we'll get right into the next topic. The all-black Bengals uniform is the worst look that the Bengals have. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually agree on that one. The Bengals get a lot of crap for having terrible unis. I don't think that's the case. I don't really like the black and black look. I truly dig the orange and white look, the alternate they wear for 2 home games a year. This year against Philly, they had the orange jersey, black pants, which is like a cool Madden combo. So I think that's why they threw that one together. Wasn't a huge fan of the black pants on that one either. Kind of looks like a pumpkin, reminiscing of Carson Palmer scrambling on the Cowboys for a touchdown. But the black on black is, yeah, I'm not a fan of it. And let's also not to mention when you look at the uniform combo by record since the Bengals made their jersey switch in the 03-04 season, that is the worst. No, the 04 season. I'm sorry. That is the worst record they have between all the unis they wear.
Yeah, I'm roasting that as well, Casey. We've already talked at length about how badly the black uniforms work out for the Bengals. Yeah, I mean, the all-black uniforms are absolutely just awful uniforms. I don't know why they even thought about wearing them. You're on a turf field playing, and, most of the time it's decently warm. And we play afternoon games in the sun. That's terrible. You're getting your players, overheated. You get it's just terrible uniform altogether. I can't stand them. I also can't stand the all orange uniforms. I don't know. Yeah, just roast it all around.
Nick is all about the roast tonight. I like it. I'm definitely going to say it is the worst uniform for sure, so we got to roast it and call it the worst one out there. And the reason to me it'll always be the worst, no matter what they do in it, is that 05 playoff game. Just, watching Palmer go down in that all-black uniform, just a heart sank. And since then, I don't think, like Tim said, it's not gotten any better for the all-black uniform. We've had lots of terrible luck and horrible things happen. And I would wonder, Tim, if you got the stats, back me up on this. I think when the Bengals actually wear the orange jerseys, they have a good winning record by quite a large margin. So, Tim, can you back that up?
I can. That is definitely the case. That I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that's the orange jerseys, their best combo that they have as far as like win percentage. But the orange and black, when they wear the orange jersey, black pants, they're actually still undefeated in that combo. Granted, they didn't wear it for about 8 or 9 years there, but when they wear it, good things happen. I.e., picking off Carson Wentz 4 times and Brandon LaFell having his first big game as a Bengal wide receiver.
So note to everyone in Paul Brown Stadium, especially the Bengals coaching staff or whoever picks the uniform, if we're in a playoff game, can we please go with the orange jersey and black pants? And sticking with another fun off-season topic because it's a slow time of year, roasted or boasted, cheese conies are the best option for stadium food. Tim, what do you think?
Eesh. Beer or no beer involved?
We'll say beer with the conies.
That's awful. Man, that just sounds like pain. In stadium, I don't know. Paul Brown has a pretty mean on that all beef hot dog that they have. The Great American has one too, but I'm one for the nachos, man. Like since I've had Bengals season tickets on and off for about 15 years now, I'm one for the nachos. Especially we call that game over when you had the Bengals have a big win. My dad and I'd always get a round of nachos with some jalapenos on there, and that was our way of celebrating with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter.
I love the cheese conies. It's definitely the best option, especially with the beer. I don't know about Tim, but I know me. You get beer and cheese conies together, you're talking about a good time. I'm not a big fan of the nachos and cheese. I don't know. Chips and cheese, it's not a big thing for me, but cheese conies, definitely. I could eat cheese conies all day, every day. Doesn't matter where from, Gold Star, Skylines, Dixie Chili, Cincinnati Chili, any of them. I eat cheese conies all day. Definitely a boast it.
I got to boast the conies as well. I mean, I'm not sure if it's just the fact that the gold star in the stadium was like right above my section. So as soon as you came out of the tunnel, you're like, conies, they're right there. And then they had the little onion station. Cheese conies with some onions and mustard are delicious. It's a Cincinnati favorite. I know, Tim, letting the Cincinnati area down by not picking the conies, but you got to stay true to your nachos and traditions. I understand. But I'm definitely boasting cheese conies. And Tim, since you're our guest tonight, we're moving into final thoughts, and we're going to let you go ahead first.
So final thoughts. Is this just Bengals in general, or is this whatever I want to talk about?
Pretty much anything. It's an open mic. Just keep it PG, please.
Oh, well, of course. Yes, absolutely. So first things first, I got to plug myself. Check out this week's edition of the Corner 3 NBA podcast. We're going to break down the trade deadline, including the big one announced today. DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis are going to be teammates. That's crazy. But I'm really excited to see what's going to happen there as the more rumors circulating as we get closer to the playoff time there. But as far as the other open mic goes, we've all heard the discussions, the grumblings, the potential movement of A.J. McCarron. I want to say, as much as I appreciate A.J. and how much he gunned out that playoff game, which was a disaster to end, but I'm not blaming him for that by any means. I'm all for the move. I saw today that there's a report that Hugh is really considering making that move to get him to Cleveland. I think AJ does have a good future if he's in the right situation, which is obviously not Cleveland. So, and that's going to save Cleveland from taking a chance and ruining another quarterback's draft pick career. I am all for that. But I saw the asking price in between a second and a fourth. If the Bengals don't get anything higher than don't get a second round pick for AJ McCarron, if they get anything lower than that, just as the main part alone, they automatically lose that trade.
So I'm going to take that in my final thoughts. I'm going to baseball. Pitchers reported. Guys, I can't wait. Baseball season's coming up. The Reds playing, getting out to the baseball field, smelling the fresh cut grass, the dirt. Oh, I just can't wait. Baseball season's right around the corner. Excited.
All right, so my final thoughts. I'm going to kind of piggyback a little bit off both of you. I'm going to plug myself for the Reds. Reds, please listen. If you need another relief pitcher who can have a 16 ERA and give up 3 back-to-back home runs, it is this guy. Casey Sprague is available whenever you need me. My phone's always on, so please give me a call. But in all seriousness, the offseason, I've actually been pretty optimistic this year with the Bengals. I know we've had some worries with the Adam Jones issue, but they're actually looking at the market more aggressively, it seems to me. Going after Ben Wickery, he's not a huge name guy, but he's actually a veteran, and they got him on a dime. So those kind of moves are the moves that are encouraging to me. They got Chris Brown last week. So they're getting guys that are cheap but could possibly pan out. So it's good. It's encouraging to me to see the Bengals have this kind of success. So those are my final thoughts. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? Going once, going twice. Well, please check us out. We are on iTunes, Google Play, and Podopedia. And everybody have a great week, and hoo-day.